Hello, welcome one and all to my channel. Welcome to this video. Today I'm going to talk about something a little personal to me a little bit. It hasn't happened, but it is something a little personal. It's around the tech layoffs, basically. We are in a recession in that aspect, or some say we're not on or on the verge of. President refuses to believe that we're in a recession, but we are. And the fact is like all these tech companies, Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft, Salesforce, Twitter, or basically are in the heat of laying off a lot of people, massive layoffs. Even though it's on their end, it's like not it's a small percentage on their end. It's still a large amount. I mean, like 10,000, 12,000, to the point of like you have 100, close to 200,000 layoffs in the matter of months, basically. And I don't think it's going to stop there. It's also probably going to affect the financial markets as well as other financial institutions, fintech companies, ad tech companies, of course, as well too, and other industries for that matter. I mean, it's gonna be a sort of cascading effect. And it's to say that some people are like, oh, pharmaceuticals and biotechs, they are kind of semi-recession proof. That's not entirely true. I am seeing it in other biotechs where some biotechs do lay off because one of the factors is sometimes the drugs or the discovery that they've been so focused on is not panning out, and they're running out of cash, and VCs aren't willing to put money into them, etc. Basically, um, so, so you might ask, like, okay, what's the cause of this recession? I'm not the cause of recession, but what's the cause of these mass layoffs? There could be a number of new reasons. One, first and foremost, basically, is let's not forget that each of these companies that are doing the layoffs that you're hearing the news on, they are public companies, so they have to meet the shareholders' expectations. Two is they are laying people off to the point of bracing for the recession, basically meaning that it's to the case of you might your company might be able to survive the recession, but if you have too many people to employ and pay, you're probably not going to be able to brace that recession or weather the storm. So this is more of a case of like they're trying to weather the storm. And number three, of course, comes down to the fact is like they might have overhired. I mean, through the pandemic itself, there was a massive amount of overhiring. Basically, I mean, people were growing because of the fact is like everyone was doing things online, and like e-commerce, e-retail, and such were big because the fact is everyone was, and even streaming was a big thing because the fact is everyone was so focused on that like they had to grow to meet the demands essentially. Now with the pandemic over and like things resorting to normal, I think it's more of a case where, like you're saying, sort of a correction in the market or more of a correction in the job marketplace where you're realizing, okay, you know what, we didn't really need this many people. So, and of course, during the pandemic eras, of course, when the hiring was going, there was a hiring craze or frenzy. Um, People were trying to recruit from other companies and willing to pay an exorbitant amount of money for those individuals. I mean, you're hearing stories of like engineers and such getting like close to $1 million in bonus, with bonuses and such, to the point where like people are wondering like, wait, what about me? And so others, if you're good, really that good, then you can get it. But now in some cases, it's coming back to haunt some of the companies that did hire. Um, and of course, with that, you either have to one keep the star or sort of get rid of those stars that aren't making that much money to him. Basically, I mean, it's one of those things where sometimes they are rescinding offers as well. I mean, blockchain companies or Web3 companies are also rescinding or going bankrupt as well too, and such. And then it's pretty funny. So, if you go onto Chat GPT and ask us like, okay, why are there like, during a recession, why is it that, you always see massive layoffs, but then after a recession, there's always a massive turnaround of like hiring. And one of the things that Chat GPT said basically was to a point of like, it could be partly true as well, is a lot of the companies that are laying off people are basically with those savings, they're retaining them for their bonuses and bonuses for their star players to the point where like rather than reinvesting back into the company, well, reinvesting to the company itself per se, right? Reinvesting to the star players as well as themselves and pocketing their own, pocketing for the bonuses at that point. Now, is it this case with some of these tech companies? I don't know, to be quite honest. I mean, it's a question of how how worth what's your worth to the company itself. Now you might say is like, okay, now this is not from personal experience, of course, but there are cases where people are saying like, oh well, one of the true signs that this is a company you should be working for is like they profess family, more of like this is a family atmosphere. Like we treat you like family. Um, be forewarned, they might treat you like family, but again, at the same time, it's one of those things where they don't have to show you loyalty because like if what family member lays off another family member or fires a family member for that matter? I mean, if unless they're doing really really bad, you really do everything you can for that family member. Um, and so in the same perspective, it's like loyalty in that aspect. So you can be 100% loyal to the company, but the company doesn't have to reciprocate that loyalty back to you. To the point where like one things come off, there are tough times. When it comes to the company versus you, the individuals, they will let you go at that point. So you should always take care and heed or caution at least into as far as what company you decide to go for. And the other aspect as well too is like there are telltale signs that a recession could be coming. Where if you go into another company, you've got to be careful to the point where a lot of the cases sometimes the new hire they're the first to go basically because you do want to retain as far as keeping those people. I mean, and at the same time as well too, you want to get rid of those people that did leave the company but stayed as a result of the counter offer. Meaning, it's to a point of like you let's say were ready to quit. Companies like what, we invested so much time, we don't have the time to invest for other people, and because the reason why the person was quit is either one, no promotion or no raise or whatever it may be, and then coming back with more money. The thing is at that point when it comes time for layoffs, that company is going to look at it and I'm like, well, you know what, this person basically was ready to leave at a moment's notice. Chances are he's probably going to do it again, whereas we know this guy, he's probably this person basically is like staying here for like a little bit less than more money, but at least is willing to stay. So let's get rid of this guy for that matter. I mean, that's a I mean, that I've seen that happen. Have I seen that happen to me personally? No. I hope to not see that, quite honestly. Um, it's very fascinating, that when it comes to the aspect of there was one professor, basically one business professor, where I forgot the article, but it was somewhere around, I think, not on the New York Times, I think the Harvard Business Review, I think. That's where it was. I think I read it. The professor was saying basically another reason why people might do layoffs is the copycat feature. Basically, if they're seeing other companies laying off, they're like, maybe we should start laying off as well, too. In reality, like, let's be lean and mean as well, too. When in reality, they don't need to be lean and mean. Because let's not forget, there's a case of fear on some people's aspect of like, want to stay with the company and they don't want to lose their jobs. But at the same time as well, too, is by overworking them, they might get stressed and then you know what? And if they have enough, they might just be willing to like leave or forget it and just like, you know what, I can't deal with this and leave. And then you just lost that other person at that point as well too. So it can have a, sort of a double, you fall on a double-edged sword. Laying off people for the sake of staying alive, staying around, but at the same time, keeping it bare minimum or lean. You're trying to stay lean, but at the same time, it's very hard to stay lean because if you overwork your employees or workers, you're going to lose out on them as well, too, at the same time, unless you reward them. If there's no reward, if they don't see a reward coming down the line, then what's the purpose? And you could say, oh, well, you know what? The reward is you're working. No, the reward is basically your job should be fulfilling to you. You shouldn't be worrying about things. If you're like freaking out and like, basically having high blood pressure, then this isn't the job for you, basically. It's a job, you should be going somewhere else at that point or to starting up your own company. It's a case where like, you shouldn't have the aspect of like saying it's a privilege for working for us. It's more of like, as a company, it's like we value you and your expertise and skills for helping us grow. It's not a case of like, again, like I said, like, oh, we value, like, oh, you should be happy for or grateful for working at all. If that's the case, you're going to lose out employees when the times start getting good again. You're going to lose those employees immediately at that, and then at that point, you might just go straight down at that point to the point where like you will lose good talent as a result. And I can tell you this: I have been with companies where we've lost really good talent, more so because the fact is, some companies basically office politics played a factor into it. And so that's another aspect as well too, is how do you prevent yourself or at least minimize your way of getting laid off? Well, there's three aspects from this perspective. Is one, office politics. Make yourself look good in front of everyone in the company that you're too valuable to be let go. I've always come to the not realization, but I've always come with the notion of like, you know what? You should go into your company, into your role, to make it to the point like you want to eliminate your role. You want to get yourself not, basically eliminate your role and eliminate your position to the point where like it's all automated so that you could do better, bigger, better things within the company. And that's where I've always gone with basically like just try to eliminate your role. You like, do you really need to be there? It's not a case of like letting others take over your role. It's more of like trying to automate your role as in the tech world, that is automate your role to the point where like, you know what? I don't need to, I'm done. It's done. Let me do more bigger, better things with the company or any other company for that matter. So that's one aspect of I've always thought is basically where I've seen and I've experienced where people were, when companies say, oh, we're trying to trim the fat and try to remove the C players. We want to keep the A players. That's not always the case. I've seen it happen where like you've seen A players let go and they've kept the B or C players. And the reason why they were keeping the C or B players is what two factors. One, they knew how to play office politics, play the game basically. And two, they knew how to keep themselves busy in high priority projects that were visible within the company. Whereas the A players, they were in a highly visible project in the past, did what they did, but now they're on to the point of just maintaining it to the point of like, okay, anyone else could come in and maintain it when they're not working on anything, much grandiose at that point. And that's the other aspect as well too, is think about it this way. With the company itself, they're not going to always reward loyalty. Even if you did something really, really well, if you haven't done anything since, they're not going to reward you for that. I mean, they might have rewarded you back then, but since then, they won't have to reward you. I mean, put it this way. Let's use an example. I mean, the guy that created a Google Newsreader at the time did something really impressive and great. The question is did he ever do anything else beyond that after that? If he didn't, I could see where Google probably during the financial crisis of 2008 letting him go. In reality, he was probably with Google, or he probably left on to start on his own thing at that point because he knew full well he wasn't getting fully rewarded. It's great he created a product, but now it's like, let me do something better on my own basically at that point. So that's probably what was happening there. And sorry, mind you, I might be going a little bit over because of the fact is like over my time, because the fact is this is a touchy subject in a way, and it's like a subject where you start to hear the news about, reading the news about layoffs, and like specifically in the tech world, but more specifically as engineers, software engineers, computer scientists, data scientists, or basically those that are actually in tech, actually doing tech, not salespeople, not operations, but actual tech. And then the other aspect as well too is I've come to the realization that if you're laid off, it won't be hard to find another job at that point. It shouldn't be that hard to find another job if you're that good, unless of course you outprice yourself or overprice yourself. That's another factor as well too. I've seen people where they were this good, they were really good, but they overpriced themselves, and I was like, I can't. There's no justification to hire them because like they fall way outside the budget, even though it's so smart and too smart that you need them to be within the company. With that, I mean, I guess there's another factor as well too. Of course, like trying to stay on high visible projects, office politics, and the third aspect as well too is become. Even though I've said one of the things is basically you want to try to eliminate your position, but at the same time, you want that dependency on you, where if you leave, the company will fall or things will start falling apart. That's another aspect as well too, to keep yourself within the company for a recession-proof aspect. But if you're doing it like that, where if you leave and there's issues where the company, things might fall apart, that in and of itself is a problem too, because at that point, you as a company will not scale. The company itself will not scale, and you won't scale as well too at the same time. And that's a big problem in and of itself. So if you're not building for something to scale out without you, then what's the purpose of you joining a company? It's more of like a case of like, why even be at this company? Why even be doing what you're doing at that point? You should be just trying to focus yourself, making yourself better. And that's one of the things I don't, and that's another fourth thing as well too. Like you see people that just don't want to do enough. They just want to skirt by, do the bare minimum, do their jobs. And that's pretty much never going above and beyond. As far as, when I say above and beyond, as far as above and beyond as getting themselves and growing themselves personally, technically speaking. I mean, I've seen people where I've tried to teach them like other aspects in my world, in the data world, and it's like, hey, you want to work with this? They're like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, whereas me, not fully versed in the DevOps world, I jumped in the DevOps world, in the infrastructure world, in the networking world, and I started learning all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is actually good. It's very useful at the same time. And it's one of those things where learning AI, machine learning is also a big factor as well too. I mean, it's one of those things where you need to grow, develop professionally and technically speaking as well too. So those are factors that I also can look into the aspect of like, if people are smart enough to realize like, what, we don't need these people that are just skirting by, even though they're doing their job, we don't need them. We want people that want to better themselves. And meaning if you better yourselves, chances are you're bettering the company in the long run as well too. So reality, you want a company, you don't want them to like just go above and beyond for the company. You want them to go above and beyond for themselves. If they go above and beyond for themselves, then they go above and beyond for the company at that point. More of like basically in this case, basically what I'm trying to say is if you go above and beyond for yourself, or you as an employer or manager try to push that person to go above and beyond for themselves rather than for the position, but for themselves to grow technically, the ultimate reward is they'll come, what they do will be beneficial for the company in the long run as well too. They'll build out some scalable stuff at that point as well too. But again, back to the layoffs itself, those are other aspects as why, layoffs can happen at that point, honestly. And let's not forget the biotech world and pharmaceutical world, they're not immune to this stuff as well too. I mean, if you overhired engineers or scientists, unless you have something in the pipeline, I mean, you're putting a lot of R&D, unless you have something in the pipeline that will like lead to more revenue or help out in the cutting costs and becoming more efficient, then yeah. But in reality, that's not the case. Everything's going to be bloated. I mean, Microsoft, Google / Alphabet, Salesforce, Twitter was definitely bloated. I mean, at the time, even Dorsey said himself, like, you know what, we hired too many people. We probably could have kept it at 1,000 people, to be quite honest. And it was just the moderation part. And like reality, they could probably create some AI. If they focused into AI a little bit more, or machine learning, they probably could have gotten the hate speeches out of there, or automatically flag them at that point for whatever matter. It's like what Google's trying to do now with YouTube and such, basically. So, and I'm assuming Meta's doing that as well too. I mean, I won't be surprised if we'll see more layoffs happening in the pharmaceutical world, as well as the fintech world. You are seeing a lot of it in the finance world, some of the hedge funds and such. I mean, hedge funds could thrive in this aspect as well too. Let's not forget the hedge funds could thrive if they have their engineers build out algorithms to basically build algorithms to determine, okay, what's the best way, what are the best companies to position themselves on, essentially, and such, or funds to position themselves in as well too. But with that, let me know what your thoughts are. Please leave a comment. I read all my comments, as I said, and of course, everything that I say here is all my opinion alone, representing no company, and in no way did I actually talk about my prior companies. Based on some experiences way in the past, but based on experiences of way people I've seen happen to them in their companies, that are my fellow colleagues, former colleagues of mine, that happened in their companies at that point, where I was with one company and they were in other companies, and you're they're telling you all this stuff. You're like, whoa, okay, what's going on? They grew too quick, etc. But this has not happened to any of the companies I worked at or currently work at. It has happened to maybe 2 or 3 companies I did work at in the past. I'll admit that. In the past, it did work at, like during the dot-com era and in the finance world as well, too. Or the financial crisis in 2008. But with that, please, again, leave your comments, feedback, any questions. I can probably give it to you as well, too. Or if anything else, we'll just leave a comment, and I will read them and try to respond to them when I get notified. Also, please subscribe. So if I could do 1,000 subscribers, I'll be able to at least get, if I could get 1,000 subscribers, I could definitely at least stream a live stream through my phone versus having to live stream through a laptop. I'm live streaming on a weekly basis is a pain. I would love to live stream daily through my phone itself, basically, to be quite honest, more than anything else. Outside of that, again, please subscribe and please leave a comment. And if you let me know your thoughts, what you think. With that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and unrehearsed. Until next time.